XRP and HBAR, two assets that have faced years of skepticism, regulation drama, and media blackout, are now being positioned at the center of what could be one of the most historic runs in crypto history. See, this isn't about hype anymore. It's about positioning, timing, and infrastructure. The world's financial system is shifting, and only a few projects have built real utility for this next chapter, and XRP and HBAR are both on that short list. When you look back at every major crypto breakout, Bitcoin in 2013, Ethereum in 2017, even Solana in 2021, there's always a pattern. First, the market grows silent. Then, the builders go quiet. Then, suddenly, everything erupts. That's exactly where XRP and HBAR are right now. Right now, whales are accumulating quietly. The charts might look boring, even disappointing to some, but that's what smart money loves. The retail crowd is distracted by meme coins, short-term pumps, and speculation, while the institutions are laying foundations. For XRP, this foundation phase has been years in the making. After winning clarity in its SEC case, Ripple didn't slow down, they sped up. They've been expanding partnerships with central banks, payment networks, and fintech companies. Meanwhile, HBAR, through the Hedera Hashgraph Council, backed by Google, IBM, Dell, Standard Bank, and others, is quietly onboarding real enterprise-grade users. We're talking governments, financial institutions, supply chains, even energy tracking platforms. You don't build those kinds of connections for short-term trading. You build them for global adoption. Let's zoom out for a second. We're standing at the crossroads of AI, tokenization, and digital payment infrastructure. And both XRP and HBAR sit directly at the intersection of all three. XRP is focused on instant global value transfer, literally replacing the broken SWIFT system. HBAR is focused on the infrastructure side, powering tokenization, decentralized ID, sustainability tracking, and enterprise-grade dApps. Now here's where it gets exciting. Both are being tested and adopted by governments and major corporations behind closed doors. These aren't vaporware projects. They're live, they're scalable, and they're ready. When the switch flips, when those integrations move from testing to full-scale production, the price action won't be gradual. It'll be explosive. Every major breakout in crypto has followed this pattern. Utility narrative forms quietly, we're here. Big money positions early, we're watching it happen. Retail realizes too late. That's what triggers the parabolic move. Right now, XRP and HBAR are in stage 2. The foundations are laid, the partners are signed, and the silence you're seeing? That's the signal. Even on-chain data supports it. Both networks are seeing increased wallet activity, rising transaction counts, and higher developer engagement. It's not speculation driving that. It's adoption. Here's what ties XRP and HBAR together. They're not chasing hype, they're building legacy infrastructure. While other projects compete for social media attention, these two are securing the plumbing of the new financial world. XRP will move the money. HBAR will tokenize the world. Both are essential. Both are undervalued. And both are being prepared for what's next, the digital reset of value transfer and asset ownership. So what's about to happen? We're approaching that moment when regulatory clarity, institutional adoption, and technological readiness all collide. And when they do, the floodgates open. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And if history has taught us anything, it's that when utility meets timing, parabolic moves follow. For those holding XRP and HBAR right now, you're not late. You're early, painfully early. But this is how wealth cycles begin. Hold through the noise, study the fundamentals, and prepare for what's coming next. Because once this next wave starts, there won't be time to catch it midair. Let's start with XRP. Ripple has quietly built the largest real-world payment network in crypto. It's not about speculation. It's about replacing the slow, expensive systems that move trillions of dollars every single day. Over 90% of the world's banks still rely on SWIFT, a system that literally predates the internet. Ripple's on-demand liquidity is the first working alternative, and institutions are testing it, expanding it, and preparing to scale it globally. Every time a bank settles in seconds instead of days, XRP is being proven in the background. Meanwhile, HBAR has become the backbone for something even bigger, the tokenized economy that's forming under the surface. Its governing council reads like the Fortune 500: Google, IBM, Dell, Standard Bank, Boeing. These aren't crypto startups chasing headlines. They're the corporations that run the world's infrastructure. Hedera's network is being used for carbon credits, real estate tokenization, supply chain tracking, and soon digital identity. Each of those sectors is worth trillions. HBAR isn't trying to compete with meme coins. It's quietly positioning itself as the rails that those assets will travel on. Now combine that with what's happening in policy. Governments across the globe, from Europe to the Middle East, are exploring CBDCs and cross-border payment pilots. Every single one of those experiments points back to a need for fast, stable, energy-efficient ledgers. XRP and HBAR check all three boxes. They're compliant-ready, already integrated with enterprise systems, and battle-tested. And here's the wild part. The macro environment is setting the stage. Inflation is forcing nations to digitize value flows. Central banks are looking for interoperability. Institutional investors are desperate for assets tied to real-world utility. It's the perfect storm, and both XRP and HBAR are right in the eye of it. So when people ask, why now? The answer is simple: because the groundwork is done. Years of building, testing, and waiting are finally aligning with global demand. When the financial world flips from theory to execution, these networks won't need marketing. They'll already be embedded. This isn't just another alt-season setup. It's the start of a structural transformation. And the ones holding through the silence, the ones paying attention right now, will be the first to see what happens when real adoption meets global scale. When you hold XRP or HBAR right now, you're not holding a speculative asset. You're holding a position in the next financial system. That might sound dramatic, but it's true. Both of these networks are being built to run the rails of the digital economy, the part of finance most people won't even see coming until it's already standard. Think about it. Every time a global payment moves through RippleNet, or every time a company uses Hedera for supply chain transparency or tokenized assets, value is flowing across infrastructure most people aren't even watching. That's the silent stage before mass awareness, and it's exactly where wealth creation happens. For XRP holders, the big picture is global liquidity. Ripple isn't trying to be a retail coin. It's designed to move money, trillions of it. Every time a bank, fintech firm, or cross-border remittance provider integrates Ripple's technology, XRP gains relevance as a bridge currency. Now, after years of regulatory uncertainty, that narrative is shifting. Banks are now comfortable exploring the XRP ledger. The fear wall has cracked. What that means for holders is simple. When the next wave of adoption hits, demand for XRP as a liquidity asset won't be retail-driven. It'll be institutional. Think about what happens when just 1% of daily global payment volume, roughly $20 billion a day, begins to settle using XRP. Even at small utility-based demand, the supply shock would be massive. XRP's supply is fixed, and the vast majority is either locked in escrow or held by long-term players. That's why so many analysts quietly call XRP the liquidity dark horse. When Ripple's partnerships with payment corridors in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa go fully live, and they will, the transactional throughput alone could reprice XRP dramatically. Because at that point, the conversation shifts from, what's the price? To, what's the capacity? Then there's HBAR. While XRP is about moving money, HBAR is about building the digital economy itself, tokenization, verification, and transaction transparency. Hedera isn't a blockchain in the traditional sense. It's a distributed ledger built for enterprise-grade stability. That's why the Hedera Governing Council includes household names like Google, IBM, Dell, and Standard Bank. Each one of those companies is running a node on the network. That means they're not just endorsing it, they're operating it. And that's a massive deal. Because when global corporations choose to secure and validate transactions on a ledger, they're not gambling, they're investing in the future rails of commerce. For HBAR holders, this translates to something most crypto projects can't offer: real usage. The more transactions move through the Hedera network, from tokenized assets to supply chain data, the more demand there is for HBAR to power those transactions. The key word is demand. Because unlike speculative cycles, This demand isn't based on emotion. It's based on function. You can't operate Hedera without HBAR. That's why long-term holders are treating their positions less like a coin trade and more like early equity in an emerging infrastructure layer. The next run in crypto won't look like 2021. It won't be fueled by hype coins or influencer tweets. It'll be driven by utility, regulation, and interoperability, the exact fields where XRP and HBAR are already planted. Once the tokenization of assets begins to scale, everything from real estate and bonds to carbon credits, we'll see a new liquidity layer emerge. That liquidity needs a fast, secure, and legally compliant settlement mechanism. That's where XRP comes in. And those tokenized assets will need a network that can record ownership, validate data, and ensure traceability. That's where HBAR shines. They're two halves of the same transformation. One moves value, the other secures it. One replaces SWIFT, the other replaces paper trails. Together, they form part of the digital backbone of Web3 finance. For holders, that means this. If you're still here, you're early. And if you understand why you're holding, you're even earlier. Here's the truth no one tells you. Holding through silence is hard. You'll question your conviction, especially when the market is flat or when hype moves elsewhere. But that's the psychological phase that separates investors from tourists. Every major crypto story started with disbelief. People laughed at Bitcoin. They mocked Ethereum. And they called XRP and HBAR corporate coins. Until the same corporations started adopting them. Right now, XRP and HBAR holders are sitting in what you could call the doubt valley, the stage before awareness catches up. But history rewards patience. You're not waiting for hype, you're waiting for recognition. And when it arrives, it doesn't come slowly. It comes all at once. The alignment is almost perfect. Regulatory frameworks, finally coming into place globally. Institutional pilots, converting into real adoption. Market cycle timing, aligning with liquidity rotation into utility assets. That's why the next few months could define the next few years. When utility and timing converge, that's when history remembers the early believers. And make no mistake, XRP and HBAR aren't fighting to survive anymore. They've already survived. Now they're preparing to lead. If you've made it this far, you already understand that this isn't about wishful thinking. It's about patterns, preparation, and timing. Every historic crypto cycle has had one thing in common. The projects with real-world utility always outlast the noise. XRP and HBAR aren't chasing hype. They're engineering the foundation for how money and data will move in the next decade. Think of what's happening right now as the quiet before recognition. Global payment systems, supply chain infrastructures, energy markets, they're all being rebuilt with digital-first frameworks. That's not speculation anymore. It's documented progress. And as that digital transition accelerates, the assets powering it will naturally rise to prominence. XRP has the unique position of being the liquidity bridge for global finance. It's solving a problem that touches every single country: how to move value instantly, securely, and cheaply across borders. The same system that's been stagnant for 50 years is being re-engineered using Ripple's technology, with XRP sitting at the center as the fuel. HBAR, on the other hand, is quietly securing the infrastructure layer for the tokenized world. From carbon credits to supply chain traceability, from enterprise data integrity to decentralized digital ID, HBAR's ecosystem is being woven into the very structure of enterprise and government systems. It's not a speculative dream. It's a technological blueprint already being tested by giants. Now, here's what that means for holders. If you're holding either of these assets right now, you're not just betting on price, you're positioned in a transition. And this transition doesn't happen often. It's generational. Most people won't recognize what's coming until it's too late, because they'll still be waiting for confirmation or mainstream media coverage. But by the time that coverage arrives, the revaluation has already begun. History repeats because psychology repeats. Disbelief first, regret later. This next run, the historic one, will be different from any before it. It won't be led by meme coins or empty narratives. It'll be fueled by adoption curves, enterprise integrations, and regulatory clarity that finally gives institutional money the green light. When that liquidity pours in, it won't chase the loudest projects. It'll flow to the ones that already have infrastructure in place. And that's exactly where XRP and HBAR are sitting. Built, compliant, and ready. So here's the mindset shift. This isn't the season to panic or doubt. It's the season to prepare. The price action will catch up to the fundamentals. It always does. The question is, will you be holding when it does? Right now, you might feel invisible, like the world isn't paying attention to what you see so clearly. But that's the beauty of conviction. It doesn't need permission. Every major breakthrough starts as a whisper before it becomes undeniable. If you're holding XRP or HBAR, you're not late. You're early, painfully early, and early always feels uncomfortable. But discomfort is where conviction grows. Don't let temporary noise distract you from generational opportunity. Because when the switch flips, when adoption moves from boardrooms to live systems, the world won't need convincing. The numbers will speak for themselves. If you've been watching closely, you already know what's coming, and you're ahead of 99% of the market. So here's what I want you to do next. Drop a comment below if you're still holding XRP or HBAR and how long you've been in this journey. Let's see how many early believers are still here. Hit the like button if you believe in utility over hype, because the next bull run will reward the builders, not the gamblers. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the noise, because we're just getting started, and the biggest moves are still forming under the surface. This is your reminder. Don't panic, don't overtrade, and don't lose sight of the bigger picture. The future is being built quietly, and XRP and HBAR are already part of the blueprint. Because when history looks back on this moment, it'll be clear, the greatest wealth wasn't made in the hype, it was made in the silence before the breakout.